Welcome everyone. Ed's going to go ahead and start sharing his screen here. So we're so thrilled that you can be here for our annual, I feel like winter/spring. We started to give ourselves this flexibility because sometimes we're technically in winter. I think spring is in a couple weeks, so we're getting close. For those of you keeping track at home. We are excited that you're here today, and we've got a great program kind of planned for you. We're doing things a little different this year. Often we do this meeting to sort of highlight the survey results that have just been released. And as Jim just reminded us, we're going to be in a survey year here pretty soon this fall. But we wanted to dig a little bit deeper into certain aspects of the survey data too. So we're really excited to put together a panel conversation for you in a little bit with some regionals about career longevity as a regional, some things that you can think about as you go to ask for more money and a better title, or all the things that you might be thinking and going through as a regional. But Ed, you want to share the agenda on the next slide and we can do some introductions? So Ed and Jim and myself will introduce ourselves. We're sort of the NARAC steering committee that each take turns with one of our committees to help move things along, help get the liaisons organized and keeping moving forward, whether it comes to planning a conference or designing the survey or getting that long awaited listserv going. So hi everyone, I'm Rayanne. My day job is the job that pays the bills. I'm Associate Director of Admissions at Creighton University, regionally based in Denver, where I'm a member of ROAR, also a member of RAC, and I'm excited to be here with you today. I represent the conference committee and we'll have an update for you in a little bit.
And I'm Ed Devine. I work for Hampden-Sydney College, which is in Virginia, but I'm based in Santa Maria, California. Shout out to my Central Valley neighbors. Hey, Chris, not many of us, but yeah, excited to be here today, and I'll kick it to Jim.
Hey everyone, I'm Jim Pearson. I'm the Senior Regional Manager with University College Dublin, an Irish university. I'm based out of Chicago, fresh back from Dublin last week. Good to be home. And I represent the survey committee, and I'm also on the board of IRNA, the International Regional Group.
Perfect. Awesome. Yes. And Jim is new to sort of our steering committee. He is taking over for everyone's favorite dear friend, Karen Smith, who many of you know. Karen, in the true definition of a regional, is no longer a regional, though I think she deserves emeritus status. And so she has sort of moved on, and Jim has worked closely with Karen and the survey committee for years and years. I think he put together the first one and has done one ever since. And so we will basically go ahead and he's going to go ahead and take over the survey duties, and he's going to walk you through some specific data and things today. So we're excited. We picked this topic based on some feedback and things from you all sort of a few months ago. And then sure, as you know, everything's been changing so quickly in the world and in education. And so we felt it was important, while the Dear Colleague letter, right, that came out a couple weeks ago kind of shook a lot of us and had us thinking, like, what is this and what do we do with it? So Ed is going to post a poll. He's got it running right now. We just wanted to kind of get your sense of the Dear Colleague letter and what you're thinking about it and what you're hearing about it. It's a quick choice here. We wanted to acknowledge that we will probably in some time do a session on it like everybody else will, but just wanted to see where you are with it and what you might need down the road in the future. So thanks for answering this question. Ed does a really good job of putting some polls throughout this presentation to keep us all dialed in and awake and paying attention. So we'll have a lot of this fun today.
Looks like
getting a good sense.
Yeah, this is online testing. So we'll share the results so you can see. Yeah, we've got some that they're wondering, I guess, right, what the letter is all about. Hoping to have more conversations soon. It is interesting for those who have started traveling. I was just doing some case study events and stepping out in front of real people, wondering kind of how comments you make about how we do our work might be interpreted. So I think this is something that we will continue to hear more about, and it's interesting to see how many really haven't got too much information from their staff or from their office yet. We will just point out quickly that NACAC probably has the most comprehensive resources for that. You can follow that QR code to get to what Angel Perez and the rest of the team are up to. If you didn't hear Art Coleman speak at NACAC, Art is our lawyer. He talked a lot about the decision, the Supreme Court decision, and how it really didn't impact what we do in the way of outreach. It really impacted what we do in the selection process. The Dear Colleague letter kind of threw that on its head. But here at NACAC, you can see some of the resources that talk about the misinterpretation, if you will, of that Dear Colleague letter. But Art Coleman is one to follow and one that we will continue to kind of lean on as we go through with this. But I think we just wanted to acknowledge what is happening in the world, people questioning and wondering about the Department of Education and do people work from home, but we will keep an eye on that. And now back to our regularly scheduled program though, Rayanne.
And that's all you.
Yeah. No, this part is you, right?
Oh, yep. Sorry. Okay. I thought we were going on to the next site. Yep. No, we're great. Awesome. We'll have another poll here shortly. So just want to acknowledge the 27 regional groups that we know exist in the world today. You can see we've had some new additions over the last couple of years. Carnival Crew is always one that catches people by surprise. And we're just keep raising the standard of regional group names. They get more and more creative with Cactus and Carnival Crew and all of that. So you can see where we are now. If there's a group you know of that is maybe not on here or is maybe forming, feel free to put it in the chat. Ed is really great at stalking people to get regional group information, but he does, and he's also really good at polls. So we have another poll. This is a short answer question because Ed did not want to write all 27 out in the poll. So you have to do the typing.
I always miss one. Yeah. We did have, I think, over 20 signed up, 20 groups represented in our online signups for today. So we're excited about that. But yeah, if you could just take a second and let us know your primary group. Some of you have a tough time with that primary. Who's my first? Who's my deepest connection to? But if you could just let us know, it's always fun for us to see that. And we'll do a quick move on and a share of those results. I don't know how that's going to come up because it's an open-ended question, but great to see so many of the groups represented now of that 27.
Oh yes, what if you're groupless? Yep, that's what NARAC's for.
Yeah, exactly. And we will help facilitate those. Just quickly from the communication side, we've got our quick history here. We've been at this for a while. Rayanne and I just came from the National NACAC SIG meeting. So we were officially a SIG way back in 2006. We talked about having these meetings. I think, Ray, we showed pretty well for the NACAC SIG groups as far as our organization and what we have done with moving forward with our structure and with what we the time we meet, etc. So we've been at it since 2012, and I think it's great to see some of the other SIG groups actually taking on more of a style like we are, creating national boards and having additional meetings beyond what they could just do at NACAC. So we're in our Council of Regionals model. We'll talk a little bit about that when you hear from the three of us. The three councils, so survey, communications, and conference. We had our great annual meeting in Los Angeles. Great job to the conference team for pivoting when we found out of a new college fair. But we've had a great history here of working with these conferences. We'll go into our 12th coming up in Ohio, which Rayanne's going to talk about. But we want to find out, are you going? Who's going to be able to make it to or what's your history here? What's your history with us? How many of you have been to other NARAC events? If you could just let us know. We're going to poll you like crazy here because we want to keep you engaged. We also love the data that we get back. Jim has kind of talked to us all about getting data and making informed decisions. So yes, let us know your history with NARAC. Is this your first ever NARAC event? Maybe your second one? You've been to 3 or you've been to many. We love the idea that the winter meeting did come about when we wanted to talk about the survey, but it has given us the opportunity to connect, not at the conference and not in person, and a real good opportunity to meet people who don't get to the NACAC conference. So we're going to end that poll and take a look at our results real quickly here. For some of us, first NARAC event ever, so welcome, 15% of you. Others are probably over half, quite a bit, over half have been to many events. So thank you for your continued support and joining us. And we look forward to setting up our next conference, which I think Rayanne's going to do as we go right now.
I think you are next with the governance.
Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned this quickly. So this is our 3-committee governance structure. We do have representation from all the regional groups on each one of the 3 committees, and we're going to basically get the updates today from the communications, conference, and survey committee. That's always changing, so that's up to the regional groups to send their membership onto us to create those smaller committee groups, and we will look forward to getting those updates from communications, survey, and conference. And Rayanne's going to talk about now the conference and the plans we have coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as many of you know, we are headed back to Columbus. This is our first time to sort of return to a city that we've been before. And so, part of the reason we don't have an official location and things to announce just yet is we are toying with, we are welcomed back to the school we worked with before, but we're trying to maybe do something new. And we like the location of our previous school and all of that. So, stay tuned. We're working through some sort of unique options, but just a couple of reminders on what to expect. The NACAC registration should open in March. All indicators are they are on track for that. When that happens, we usually send you out a reminder to just say, hey, as you're looking at travel and getting approval, don't forget our conference will be Wednesday, September 17th. We have not gotten any indications from NACAC that they would put a college fair on Wednesday again. I know, actually, ironically, the Columbus NACAC fair that's typically held in the spring was just held a couple weeks ago. So they may put one in. It seems to be a weekend fair, so hopefully that continues, and we'll let you know if we run into issues, and of course we'll pivot as needed. But I don't think anyone fully, I mean, we did what we had to in Los Angeles, but I know we are all eager to get back to our traditional format. For those of you new here, it's usually a day-long event, usually arriving by say 9 a.m. or so, leaving by about 3, though that alters a little bit depending on our host institution. If they're like, you got to avoid car lines, so you can't get there, till 9:30, or you got to be gone by 2:30 because of afternoon car line, we work with them. We also work with them in terms of what needs we can provide. We often will host a college fair for their student body in exchange for hosting us. We've also done presentations, though, to sort of create a mini college day where they can learn about essay writing, maybe do a case study. So we'll keep you posted on who our host institution will be and what their needs are. And it feels like we could probably get our registration form ready to go in March as well. Typically, that's just a quick Google form where you can sign up. And then most of you remember, we won't actually bill you for the program until we get into the new fiscal year in July and are a little bit closer to knowing what our cost will be. In the past, our conference has been everywhere from free to about $30, $40 as we've been in different cities that have been more expensive. It usually covers a lunch as well as some different snacks and things as well too. But so thanks for being flexible on that. And as soon as we know more, you'll know more. You'll see on here just a few reminders. If you do want to put together a NACAC session proposal, March 10th, the call for proposals closes. And then we, as the conference planning committee, are going to get together here and start meeting and be polling you for what topics you're interested in learning more about, or maybe you have a topic that you'd like to present on at our NARAC conference. So we will definitely be in touch and give you lots of feedback opportunities on that as well. So stay tuned. Probably in the next couple weeks, we'll have those announcements.
All right, let's find out, Ray, who's going to the conference. Please take a second to do the poll. Who plans to attend NACAC and NARAC? You've got your questions and answers there, so let us know. Always interesting to perhaps ask the question, who wants to go and is going to try and negotiate that? We might have to ask our panel of managers how they could best put a presentation together to make it to the NACAC and NARAC conference. So we hope you'll be there. We just want to see how many plan to attend both the conferences, how many are unable to attend. Not sure at this time. Maybe you can just attend NARAC. That's totally allowable. So if you're in the Ohio area or want to visit grandma and swing by the NARAC conference, you can always do that as well. So looks like we are falling under the I am unsure at this time, with almost half of us saying that you're unsure, and that makes sense. And we know that getting to the national conference is tough, and we wish we could all gather there, but we usually see, I think, something around 120 to 150 or so regionals. Many make that meeting, the Wednesday meeting. Other times we get to catch up at the special interest group meeting that's part of the conference. So we hope to see you there. Maybe we'll get some tips on putting proposals together on how to get there. So there's that poll. They're doing good on the surveys here, Ray.
Yeah, they're loving it.
So from the communications team, just some quick updates. Again, we are part of the triad, the three groups that's kind of make up NARAC. We opened up the gaggle. That's been the biggest thing we've done. We've got now 550 members of our list served. So we will continue to kind of work on that. We'll share some quick insight on that. But we do want to continue conversations about opening up more meetings. I think the big question we have had from our membership here is to connect leaders within each regional affiliate group. So we have plans to kind of work on that. Maybe create a newsletter out of that listserv so we can stay connected. And really finding that time to connect affiliate chairs, leaders. So far, we've found out that not every group looks the same or has the same structure, but to get leadership together from the 27 affiliate groups will be part of our goal moving forward. Yeah, if you want to continue to tell people about the listserv, we're always happy to welcome more. You must be a regional, so we have had requests from your managers, your bosses, so they want to see what's going on. We have had requests from high school counselors, so maybe there are opportunities to expand that communication system. You don't have to be part of a regional group. So we do have folks on there. If you ever meet regionals who are unconnected to a group, please tell them that they can sign up. It's on the contact us tab. You can find ways to join. Just quickly, some rules for the listserv. We want to keep this professional. It's a way to connect regionals from across the country. Everybody's been following these rules to a T. Be collegial. We are allowing job posts, so we do not currently have a job board as part of the NARAC website, but we will allow job posts here. And we're pretty open to posts that are for regionals as well as campus-based positions if you want to introduce those, but use your kind of best judgment on positions that would really apply to our group. We're not allowing here any promotion of universities or university initiatives. We really kind of just want to keep this for conversation between the regionals of the country. The anticipated, I guess, 1,200 that might be out there. We will still continue to push through the liaisons information from NARAC over to the liaison groups so that you can still watch for information coming directly from your regional affiliate group. So that's just a little bit about communications. We do want to move into the meat of what we are here to talk about today. And I'm going to bring up a panel here in a second. I'm going to have Ruth Rodriguez from University of Oregon and Michael Decker join us with Jim Pearson, who has been crunching numbers, I think, since he was a wee lad, and loves doing it. And we're happy to kind of move forward with this section where we get to kind of put to life what happens with this survey data. We saw many of you are kind of perhaps new to this, but Jim will talk about where you can find all that information and queue us up for where we are with the survey, and then we'll go into our roundtable discussion with our panel of experts. So Jim, say hello.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Yeah, I've been working with the survey committee since 2019 was the first version of the survey that I worked on, which feels like a lifetime ago. But as my colleagues know, I love a good spreadsheet, so I'm always happy to get involved with the survey results and analyzing the data. And it's been fascinating to see how the field has changed over the last three versions of the survey. And as we've said previously, we do the survey regularly, but we're usually on an odd number year survey running trend, at least for now. So we ran the survey last in 2023, which means we're due to do it again in fall 2025. So we'll reach out and have some more for you later this fall once we get that sorted out. I did present the data at NACAC in LA with my other survey committee co-chairs, Karin Smith and Sarah Goldman, and we had Derek Brinkley join us as well to kind of talk through the survey results. But we're going to talk about kind of a small snapshot of all the survey results that we received in the last survey, because there's hundreds of questions and a lot of great data, but you can find all the data on the NARAC website. We have a section that has survey data both from the 2023 and the 2021 and 2019 surveys. So great data that you can pull. You can see kind of a summary report of all the data and kind of the highlights of what's going on. And you can download the Excel sheet to manipulate yourself to find what's most relevant for you or what you're trying to look into. So if you want to know if other reps generally get their parking spaces paid for at their home, then you can find that out. And if they don't, you can also find that out to try and advocate for yourself more. So that's why we do the survey, as well as to provide reps with data they need to advocate for themselves, to see what the standard is in the regional rep world, to see what's normal or abnormal in your position, and be able to talk more about your position and advocate for yourself to your manager or decision makers. And it's also available for decision makers at universities as they're maybe starting a new regional program or expanding, to be able to see what the standard is, to be able to create a program that is, more sustainable and supports their regionals. So with that being said,
Jim, let's find out what their
yeah.
folks' usage on the line. If you could just let us know your usage with the survey data. Have you used this NARAC survey data, and to what fashion have you learned that? I think we're going to really hopefully find some that are new to it, but some that used it. We want to kind of touch on that when we talk to our panel, kind of how that might empower a regional. But yeah, have you used the NARAC data? I want to see if you weren't aware that it existed. We've got a few of those, Jim. So
yeah,
we will be kind of highlighting where it is and how to use it. Some of them do want some training on it. Personal research, always a great way to use this. If you've used it to negotiate salary, we might ask you to put some comments into the chat during our next section. And so we're going to give you a second more to do that. I think we've got most everybody, so we'll share those results. And you can see across the board how many people are using that survey data. And always glad that Jim and his team are here to continue the survey. And it's not an easy lift, not a light lift, but also that the training on how to use it is has always been beneficial. So
it's heartening to see people have actually looked at it. I would have been heartbroken if no one had ever looked at it. What did I spend all this time on it for then? But it's great, even just for personal research, to be able to look into it. It's great that people are looking at it, and we hope that you'll use it to advocate for yourself. So the first few slides, and like I said, we're just pulling a few little tidbits out for this session today because we don't have forever. But one of the things we're talking about now is how to use the survey and a reflection of the field, what your opportunities might be within the field, especially if you're a new professional to either to move up, or are you going to move on? How are you going to find what the next step is for you? So just a sort of baseline thing, we did ask a lot of demographic background questions of survey respondents, and we got 413 responses, which is about a third of all regionals that exist in the country that we know of. So pretty decent response rate. And something worth highlighting, one of the things I wanted to point out, especially for new professionals, is about 52% of our respondents have a master's degree, but a good chunk of regional reps don't have their master's degree or maybe are working towards it at the moment. So about 42% of people in the field have their bachelor's degree and might be working towards a master's. And I think it feels like a master's degree is more and more necessary in a lot of ways, but it isn't absolutely necessary. There's options within the field if you don't have your master's yet, if you're working towards it. And then as I get more and more gray hairs and I see the birth date of applicants to university keep going up, I feel older and older, but the survey data and the age that people responded, it's showing a little over 50% of respondents were 35 or younger in the field, and a little under half are over 35. So there's a good split in ages and people that have been in the field for a long time and have a lot of seniority and have experience within the regional field. And then there's a lot of people that are brand new to it and learning what it is, and a lot of new hires since, COVID the last few years. There's been a lot of changes in regional offices. Yeah.
Can I just catch my breath for a minute as I see myself getting closer to that pink and orange? I've only got 2 dots left.
Yep. Yeah, so it is interesting. And then one of the other points to pull out, we asked respondents to say how long they've been in their field. We asked a few different questions, and the two that I'm pointing out here is how many years of experience do you have as an admission professional, including regional? So some people worked in an office setting or worked on campus and moved to regional. And it does skew more heavily towards the, fewer years of service, less than a year, 1 to 5 or 6 to 10. And then when you ask the same respondents, how long have you served as a regionally based counselor, it is heavily in the less than 1 year or 1 to 5. But there is a long tail to that, and there are people that have made a career out of this, being here for 31 to 35 years, or in the admissions field for more than 40. And I feel like everybody's heard the 3 or 30 kind of saying, that you're in the field for 3 years or you're in it for 30. And it seems like regional admissions, we're not immune to that, but there are quite a few people who have made it past that 3-year hump and are still in the field and still working towards making this a long-term career. So there's opportunities there and in this field.
Yeah, awesome. So we're going to bring the panel on, and we're all going to kind of serve on that panel, but we're going to bring Ruth and Michael up. And Michael, if you want to start with telling us about your storied career. The movie is going to be out on Netflix soon, I'm sure. But when you got started and how you end up in regional life.
Well, the highlights of that movie, I think Ed would have the best parts after college fairs. Um, I think the interesting thing is I didn't realize how long I've been in admissions because I always think I just started, but I actually started in admissions in 1999. That was my first job. I was an orientation leader right out of college, and then really made the switch to regional life though in 2009 when I moved from New Orleans to San Diego. And kind of I was one of not one of the first, but we were really small as a rack group back then. There was like what 40 or 50 of us,
Yeah.
and we've just continued to grow and grow. But I think it really started to get interesting in 2014 when I started supervising students, and that's just students but staff members also. And then having some opportunities to be an interim director going back to campus at Loyola New Orleans, asking me to, hey, come back to New Orleans full time, and realizing I love regional life. I love what we do out here. And then eventually switching over to Loyola Maryland and starting their regional program, and now supervising three other regionals too. So kind of exciting. Exciting to see the different roles that I've played and to see how we've grown as regional groups too.
Yeah, Ruth. Hello, hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, so I've been in admissions for 21 years. University of Oregon is my fifth university that I worked at. Primarily worked in California. So I have been at UC Merced. I was one of the first admissions counselors at UC Merced. Then I went on to Cal State Long Beach, was at UCLA, and then started my regional career 10 years ago with Colorado State University. And then now I've been at University of Oregon for 6.5 years. So I've been doing this 10.5 years. Went into the regional role, just wanted to have a career challenge change, and I'm really enjoying it. I think I would have a challenging time transitioning back to a campus. I would do it if it was the best fit for me, but I really enjoy the autonomy and being in the regional world. And I've had opportunities for growth. I supervise the California regional, so when we're fully staffed, there's 6 of us here. And then for the majority of 2024, our supervisor for all the regionals was out on leave. So I supervise our whole team, which was 16. So I'm really enjoying it. And there's some challenges with it, but I really enjoy what this brings into my life in regards to a career.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Ruth, for being here. Jim, we've heard from you a lot, but we don't know your career path. Tell us how you ended up here.
Yeah, I started at one university. I'm still with them, and now I'm here. So yeah, I entered higher ed and knew I wanted to do international higher ed. Did my master's degree at University of Connecticut and got connected with University College Dublin through that, and then started 10 years ago as a regional rep and covered the central region, went out to Colorado and Texas and all around the Midwest a lot. And then UCD created some more opportunities for me to move up, and now I manage our team of in-country regionals. So we have a staff of 7 that are based full-time in North America to work with our North American students. And it's been great. I love working in the field, and I love the added dimension of international education and being able to bring students to Ireland.
It's awesome. And Rayanne, probably people here don't know your storied career.
Mine intersects Michael Decker at various points. It all goes back to New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina. So ditto what he said. No, but I said to Ed earlier when we were prepping for this, I've been in college admissions, since I was a tour guide, in college, and then made a career out of it, always on this side of the desk. But when I look back and realize that 22 of my 28 years, I've been a regional, it's crazy to think. Like, you never go into it thinking you'll be a regional. And that will be the defining part of your career, but it has turned out to be. So.
Yeah, and I'll just share too. I was about 5 years into the career, and I made a move to the Jesuit school. So I moved to Lemoyne in upstate New York. Had a great career, great trainers there, mentors. Dennis DePiro, who went on to become the president of St. Bonaventure. I told him I was leaving to be a regional, and he told me it was a big mistake. He thought that it was not the right thing to do. He wasn't a fan of regionals and offices that he had managed. I loved seeing him at NACAC over the years, because he would come up and say, Eddie, you continue to make a liar out of me. You've made a career out of this regional world, and great to get his respect for that. But it was 1998, I stepped into the world of regional. I think I was at a transition point in the career. I loved working with students, but as I moved up higher, found there was less time to do that. And the idea of becoming a regional and going to work for Hawaii Pacific University, aloha Susie, was so compelling to represent them on the East Coast. But what I really found is that all that student interaction that I had was what probably has kept me in the game. I've since worked for quite a few schools. We'll leave it at that. Tried to go back to the office for a short period of time and was an allergy. I had developed an allergy to office life and came back to regional. And it's been a long regional career. Always surprised at the new opportunities that have kind of popped up and presented themselves. So grateful for that. But I think the reason I've stuck with it is that direct contact with counselors and students. I would have missed that, I think, going back into an office. I do think about it, though, at times, but happy to kind of serve in the regional career here. So that's a little background on our panel. I'm going to bring back up our slideshow so that Jim can take us through some more data and kind of we can continue this conversation. So you've got that slide up, Jim?
Yep. And we're going to dive into what's always the part that interests people the most is hiring and salary. Salary is always what people want to hear about and how much everyone else is getting paid. So we'll talk about that a little bit here. But one of the things that really sticks out and has been consistent with this survey and the previous one from 2021 is that regionals seem, as a field, seems to be growing. Of the people that responded, more than half said that their institution had added new regional positions within the last 2 years. There was a good numbers, 59, that said regional positions have been taken away or not filled, and quite a few that are staying the same. But there is growth, there are opportunities there, and we're seeing changes. I think this would vary a lot depending on what kind of institution and where you're talking about regionals might be placed, but there are opportunities and growth within the field that we're seeing, which is encouraging. And then there is more full details on salary. The average salary of all respondents was about $64,000 a year. But this is a complicated chart, but I think is telling of a bigger story that I wanted to highlight. So it's a box and whisker chart. So I'll just explain it because it's kind of small and hard to read for everyone. But the salary is the vertical axis, and then it's grouped by years of experience as a regional representative. So the first one all the way on the left is for people that are less than 1 year in their position, and then 1 to 5 years. The dark box is the mid 50% of that group's average salary. So less than 1 year, the average salary, mid 50%, ranges from 45 to 65,000, with 55,000 being the average salary in that area. There's the whiskers, which are the lines at the top and bottom, are the full range, so the lowest and the highest value. So you can see there's a huge variation across some of these fields. There's some outliers, which are the ones at the very tippy top. But you can see there's a huge range, and part of the story is that you would expect with years of experience, your salary would go up. Maybe that's not always the case, but in the survey respondents and what we got, that is true. So the average salary starts at 55,000 for less than 1 year and goes up to 60, 67, 69, up to $77,000 is the average salary for the people that were 21 to 25 years in the field. And again, there is a huge range there, and a lot of this depends on type of institution, location. We know there's different salary regulations in different states, so that'll affect average salary as well when you're looking at different regional groups. So the huge change there. But you can see, and if you are one of the newer people, maybe on the left side of the field, that there are opportunities for moving up in salary range as you stay in the field, and that the people that are still here and have been for a long time are enjoying those higher salaries typically, most commonly, not always, but there will be opportunities for earning a higher salary. And then we broke down salary in a few other ways if we want to go to the next slide. So we also...
We're so glad you were here to explain this because Rayanne and I thought this was sheet music. We thought you were going to play a little Irish ditty for us today. So
yeah, it is complicated. I love the chart and what it says, but there's a lot of data points all in there, so it does get complicated. But we also asked respondents to the survey to pick the job title that was most closely matched their own. If we asked everyone what their job title was, there's 413 responses and 413 different job titles, I feel. But you can see a clear progression in average salary depending on job title, from the kind of newer, more entry-level titles of counselor, rep, advisor, all the way up to director, dean, manager. So there is a progression as you move on through the seniority in your office and the different opportunities. There will be opportunities for higher earning within that as well, is what the data is showing us. And the one other differentiating point that we asked is we did poll whether respondents have supervisory responsibilities. The vast majority, 75%, don't supervise anyone, but those that do supervise, there is a good chunk of people that supervise either other regionals, campus-based staff, or both. And you can see there's a huge differentiation in salary between those that don't supervise anyone or maybe supervise student staff. There are a few people that, maybe supervise student ambassadors or something like that. And then there's a huge jump up when those supervisory responsibilities do kick in. I think that's a huge differentiating point for regionals as you go through responsibilities. If you find a role where you get the opportunity to supervise others, that may be one of the opportunities you have to increase your salary options. And then one other thing, yeah, you can go on to that one. One other thing we asked is, over the past 2 years, what does admission staff turnover look like in your office? And one was little to no turnover. That's the barely perceptible dark orange line. So very few people are experiencing that rock solid admission staff experience in their office. But the striking stat is 59% of respondents were at a 6, significant, or a 5, so pretty high turnover. So a huge proportion of respondents had seen a lot of turnover in their office over the last couple of years. I think we're seeing people moving around in different jobs, seeing new positions created or maybe positions removed, people moving to different offices, different institutions, and different opportunities for a lot of different ways. The kind of overall, the graphs and everything were created in what's called Looker Studio and in online. So it's an online report, and you can click through and add filters to a lot of the survey responses. And if you download the Excel sheet, we did ask if you work for public or private, large, medium, small institutions. So you can filter some of the responses based on those characteristics. So you can find institutions that maybe more closely match your current position.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good question. Yeah, the one thing we would harken back to our 2012 conference in Denver, and we had a panel of deans and directors, so folks that were hiring and managing regionals, and we asked them to rank in order the categories you see below. So knowledge of the region that they were hiring the person in, knowledge of the school and the institution that they were going to represent, knowledge generally of the admission profession, knowledge of technology, and knowledge of financial aid. And then, of course, because we had Ken Anselment on there, we had to have the hustle category. So kind of that interest and passion for the career was what we asked them to rank. And they did this live as part of their presentation. So if you look at this and think how you would rank this right now in your regional role, it will be interesting to compare that to what the deans kind of thought about. And if we can bring that up, this is how the deans ranked it. So they thought the number one piece of knowledge to be a regional was knowledge of the institution. They would put second that passion. Third would be knowledge of the admission profession, and then on down the line. What was interesting, we then surveyed and asked regionals, and we saw quite a disparity. So knowledge of the region was something that came up very highly for a regional admission professional, saying, I know the backyard, I can figure out the institution, put that a lot lower at that 4th ranking. And then knowledge of the admission profession, our regionals thought was very critical. Equal representation for hustle and passion for the career. So that real interest, I think, in helping young people find access to college was common. But really interesting that those top 2 were almost in reverse order. So with that, we're going to kick it back to our panel, bring on Ruth and Michael. Ruth, we'll start with you. When hiring people, what are some key qualities that you look for in a regional?
I definitely align with the rankings of the regionals. And fun fact, I'm in the middle of hiring somebody. We had one of our Northern California regional reps leave in the fall, and I'm in the middle of replacing them now. And we just did interviews last week, and experience is really important to me. Ideally, if they've had both on-campus and regional experience, but it's okay if they haven't. Our top candidate right now has only had campus experience, but the other thing I look for is really potential to understanding admissions if they haven't had a lot of experience. There's just people that are their instincts, they understand admissions, and that's what I'm looking for. And the questions that I ask in interviews really are specific to that, because I feel like the responses really help me understand if they understand admissions. Because for those of you who have recruited in California or do it now, it's a monster to recruit in California. We're such a well-organized state. There's always something going on. And so I have to be able to trust people that they know how to do their job and give them everything that they need, their resources, and then go and do it. I'm not a micromanager. I truly follow the territory management kind of approach, where I really want the staff to feel that they're trusted, and I hired them because I knew that they could do the job, and then I want to see them do their job. I will definitely support them through the process, but that's why it's really important that they come in understanding what the role is. That's really important. So some form of experience and potential, even for people who are younger in the field, is really important to me.
Yeah, Michael, when you're putting that team together, what do you look for?
I think there's two big things. What is the university or what is our office looking for out of that candidate? For example, we needed somebody that was on the committee, or on our admissions committee. So one of our regionals, that was one of the main goals I was looking for her. We also, one of the other folks that we hired recently, we needed somebody that would take over our online events. And then the other one, we really need somebody that could hit the ground running. They were our Southern Regional, and they had Texas and Florida, and balancing that was key. So really finding folks that would fit those roles. And I think the other key for me to have a successful regional team is having office buy-in. So I always make sure I had somebody on our team on campus that was in that interview process too, to say, hey, Michael, this person, they might not fit with this, or they won't be able to do that. And especially for, I'm not very familiar with the East Coast. I've done all of the South and a lot of the West, but those East Coast schools, high schools, I have no clue about. So I need buy-in from my team also about that.
Now, just we'll go back to you, Ruth. Just kind of when you're putting the org chart together for such a large regional group, how does that bump up against the office org chart? And what kind of thoughts have you had on salaries and position titles when hiring regionals?
So for ours, it's very black and white. All our regionals are assistant directors. And that was decided back when they had their first original regional, to be able to give them that salary that was hoped for, especially in California, because our first regional was in Northern California. So title was important. HR had to do that. Now, because of the minimum wage laws of salary in California, we're following that very closely. We meet those requirements, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of wiggle room for us when we hire people. So that becomes a big challenge. In our process, when we hire people, leadership like associate directors or directors are not in our hiring process in the committee part of it, but the supervisor, the hiring manager, will meet with them and get approval of who's doing that. And so sometimes it's kind of negotiation, because unfortunately, since I supervise the California team, there's a little bit of the disconnect of understanding how truly expensive it is to live in California. I think people just kind of know until they're here. Then they realize, oh, it is really expensive. And so sometimes it's kind of a little hard, because there's a little tension between what regionals make and what on-campus staff makes. And our office, to some extent, takes into consideration where they're located, but not truly, because our Texas reps make the same as we do, our Colorado reps make the same as we do, and they live in some cities that are less expensive. So that becomes a challenge in hiring people as well, because I want the person that I'm hiring right now to be in Santa Clara County, and that's probably one of the most expensive counties to live in California. I'm crossing my fingers, but that's a challenging part of the process.
Yeah, we've seen that kind of conflict come up in the survey data as well. We analyzed it for the previous survey in 2022, but not 2023. Didn't have the opportunity to. But generally, regionals work in expensive areas, and their universities maybe in less expensive areas. And for all the responses, we took the zip code of a regional's home office and their campus, and then looked at their salary. And generally, where campuses are located was a little bit cheaper than the average overall national cost of living. But where regionals were living was about 12% higher than the national average cost of living. So there was a huge disparity between where regionals were living in small college, or where regionals campuses were in small college towns, versus where they were placed, New York and Bay Area and Southern California. And the conflict that comes up there, because regionals also say not most people don't have any salary adjustment based on cost of living in their area, or maybe a minor one, but it's not a given that regionals will be paid more because they're somewhere else that's more expensive, which is a big conflict for everyone and for maintaining staff.
And I think something that's interesting is when I've created regional positions, I've used that survey. And then I've also, to get more money, especially when it comes to location, and then and years of service. The other thing that I thought was fascinating is when folks were trying to go from campus to regional life, that survey was very beneficial for those folks. And then for my team, my team in the past, when they've had to advocate, when they've taken on more responsibilities and more roles, they've also used the survey to get more money, which is kind of nice too. So that survey is very beneficial when it comes to having to go to HR and explain. And they're like, show me facts. that's definitely facts that are hard. Those PowerPoints are great that with the survey too.
Warms my heart.
Yeah, that's
Can
good.
I add one? Sorry,
ahead.
can I add one tidbit to that? Because one of the things that I do, and I'm afraid that the person that I hire would may have to do, I live within my territory, but I still have to drive a lot and travel a lot. So I think that's another thing that we don't get or understand, that sometimes people live in places that they prefer, but it adds to the part of the job, right? So people don't realize that I have to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning to be at a 8 a.m. visit in the Bay Area, because
Right.
that is one of my territories. So keeping that in mind as well, is that some people will do that to have the job. Because I live in the Central Valley, so that is cheaper to live here and just have to recruit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, good stuff. Always tough. And we had a success story that we worked with this year, a gentleman who ended up making a hire and really used the survey data to push salaries as high as he could, and then went higher than even his range that he promoted. And he talked a lot about kind of recruiting for longevity. We're going to ask Jim to push along and kind of take us through this third part of the survey in today's session. This is about managing regionals and how you fit into the flow of office life. Jim.
Yeah, there's a lot of great data in the survey here, and I picked out just a couple things that I think are worth highlighting. And the first slide here is maybe not good news, depending on your goals in your life. Is, I don't know, maybe you have this idea that you'll get more seniority and then you'll travel less or you'll read fewer apps, and that is not the truth based on the survey results. So you can see the first column is years as a regional, 1 all the way down to 21 to 25. And then the average apps read per year increases significantly. Maybe those people less than 1 year, they didn't get a full year of app reading in. But we're seeing a huge number for people that are 11 to 15 up to 21 to 25. So you're not going to be reading fewer apps just because you have more seniority, I think is kind of the lesson here. And additionally, there's the average number of fairs attended in fall 2022. There's kind of a lower average for people as they go down, but it doesn't disappear entirely. And I think that's just the job. If you're regional, you're here, you're in market, you're expected to attend events and do things. So I think that's just a warning. I think people think, maybe it's exhausting, the life on the road, or it's exhausting doing app reading, but that's just part of the job, and that maybe other opportunity or other responsibilities will weave their way into your job or your job title or what you're responsible for, but it won't go away entirely. And then another thing that came up, I think there's questions that Ed prompt is kind of the difficulty in being off campus, not having access to campus, maybe not feeling like you're not seen as contributing equally because you're not on campus all the time, helping to manage on-campus events like open days or visits and things like that. We do have regionals that are all over, like people that, one of the largest groups is people that live greater than 1,000 miles away from their home campus, and those people are visiting campus very seldomly, 1 to 3 or 4 to 6 times a year. There are a good number of people that can drive up to their campus, and would be there in an hour and can be on campus more than 10 times per year, but it's pretty rare to see that. And I think it's just indicative that if you're off campus, if you're living away from campus, not getting back to your campus to visit very often, is being able to advocate for yourself in what contribution you're making. If you're not there for those weekend programs or those evening programs, how you're contributing to the overall mission, even though you're not there and on campus, not visible all the time. So being able to talk through that as a way of explaining your value and what you bring to the team.
Yeah, we're going to bring the panel back up. I think one thing you learn is time zones, right? Working at Hawaii Pacific with the team of 7, we were in every U.S. time zone. So that's a lot of math. That's some high level math. But Michael, if you want to talk about balancing that regional team, keeping them in line, kind of meeting with them, and then balancing that work with what they have to do in the office or on campus.
I think the biggest thing for me when I started supervising or working with our team is setting realistic expectations. Same thing. The rest of our regional team is on the East Coast, so that time zone and making sure that we know that y'all, most of y'all know me in here. Michael Decker is not waking up at 6 in the morning for a 9 o'clock phone call because you have a question. So they go to the people on campus for those types of questions. But in turn, when one of those staff members on our campus have questions and it's 9 o'clock at night, they're calling Michael because they know I'm still working or I'm still at my desk or on my way to a fair. And I think besides having realistic expectations, also, we step in with events and with events and projects that might be able to, we can handle off campus. So for example, our regional team handles all online events. We're handling our Slate inbox, anything that we can help take that pressure off of the team. Because I think sometimes the regionals will get a bad rap because we're not on campus doing the presentations. In turn, we're doing all those online presentations and events. So that way campus doesn't, the folks on campus don't think that we're just sitting at home. And they realize that. And I think the really great thing is I have 3 amazing team members right now that jump in, and they're constantly either on Teams chat or on Zooms with the admissions folks in the office. I think that is one benefit that COVID did for us, is made everybody really comfortable on Zoom. So you can have meetings like this, which kind of works nice. Where before COVID, I was very difficult to get my team on a meeting. Now we hop on calls all the time.
Yeah, Ruth.
That's what I was going to say. Since I've been at UO for 6.5 years, I had that experience of before COVID to after COVID. And one of the blessings, and maybe the only few blessings came out of COVID for our office, is that the regional team really came together and worked really well together as support. And that created this trust of understanding that admissions counselors, whether you're on campus or off campus, you have very similar jobs, but also very different. You know, to Michael's point about being there for on-campus events versus virtual events. I love Michael's idea that, you know, regionals do the online portion of it. What did come out of COVID for us is that people were able to take on additional responsibilities. Like our office kind of was like, oh, you guys can't recruit, you can't travel, so you need to find other things to keep you busy. And so that led to a lot of committee work projects where now there are tons of projects that people work on and you don't have to be on campus. There continues to be a distinction between being on and off campus, but just because of the fact that we're not physically there. So we have to remind people that our jobs are very similar but different at the same time. Setting expectations, to Michael's point, is really important, being realistic with staff. I really help staff work through what their career goals are, what they're interested in doing, because my goal is that the people that I love working with, I would never want them to leave. But if they choose to, I want them to be ready. I want them to have the skills, the knowledge to go on to that next position, whether it's still in admissions or in another role. So that's really important to me, to have those conversations with staff so I can know what they're interested in and develop those skills. And I'm also the type of supervisor that I utilize their strengths, but I want to work on their weaknesses too. So I will throw challenging projects on staff so that they understand that we want to work on that. It's not just setting up for failures. I'm here and we need to work on this. I think work-life balance can be very challenging in the regional world. I unfortunately am a workaholic, and so I set a really bad example as a role model for my staff. So I'm constantly telling them, don't work like I do. Like, I'm dumb. I don't know why I do what I do. I do know why I do it, but the point of that is that I'm constantly reminding them to have that work-life balance. I have to sometimes rein them in and let them know you can't, and you don't have to say yes to everything. And so I think that's important too. And helping them understand what are the important projects to say yes to and which ones are not. And then also just balancing it, saying like, oh, you want to take that project on, then you don't need to do something else, because I think it's important. So development of a staff is really important to me.
Yeah, that's good. And just quickly, if we could have you reflect too on the begin with the end in mind, the year-end review, how somebody should probably not lead with the survey data saying, give me more money, give me a title, but how they should approach their kind of their year-end review with you, and what stands out when they do that. Ruth, you want to start with that?
So unfortunately, when we do our annual evaluations, there is no salary conversation. It's part of that. That's a separate process. So our yearly evaluations is truly just coming together and talking about what worked, hopefully not what didn't work, but if those conversations have to be had, they have to be had. And then we set goals for the next year. Unfortunately, because of budget constraints, God, I can't even, probably the last 10 or 15 years, I've always worked at really large public universities. So budget is always an issue. So salary negotiations is a difficult conversation to have. Honestly, to be truthful, most of the time they don't work on ours. As much as I advocate, I want to give staff more money, budget is always an issue at large public schools that I've worked at and when people have asked for money. So that was our difficult conversations to have. And just so you understand too, right now with the position we're hiring for, we have a set salary, and when I offer the position, I'm sure that they're going to ask me, hey, can we negotiate that? And I say, tell me you're asking. I'm going to go to them and I know I'm going to be told no. Like it is set, is a set number. So it's challenging in my office.
22% of regionals on the survey said they hadn't received a merit raise in the last 2 years, which is, there are a lot of people that were unsure and new, so they wouldn't be able to respond to that.
So let me say this, we do have cost of living raises, things like that. And then if we do have merit money, what we do is we evenly give it to everybody. Because we go so many years without giving raises that instead of giving them true merit raises and finding a staff that deserves it for equality purposes, and again, because sometimes it's years since people have something, we divvy up the money. So people do get salary increases, but it's not based on their contribution to the office, unfortunately.
And I would say for our year evaluations or yearly evaluations, when you start and when we're interviewing you, we're letting you know your goals. We're telling you you're having to do 125 visits. You're probably going to read about 1,000 files. These are going to be what's expected of you. Then as a supervisor, at a 6-month mark, I'm coming in and talking to you about where you are. And I realize your first year, some of my team members 2 years ago when they started, we started them in September. There was no way they were going to hit all these goals, but setting realistic expectations for them. We also do what we call a weekly activity report, a war report, and I'm having their goals in there and their personal goals. So if I know somebody wants to get a master's, I'm pushing them right then and there to say, hey, did you get that application in to get your master's? Some of my team members like don't want a master's, don't want to do it. Other ones are really big into that type of stuff. Or do you want to go up? I know Ruth said earlier that she wants to keep everybody on her team. I do too. I love my team members, but I realize that first year counselor might want to one day become a director. Michael Decker's probably going to retire from Loyola, Maryland, or unless I win the Powerball. But that's the person I want to make sure that I can move up the chain and the ladder. And then the other thing I would say is having those hard conversations through the year, both up and down. So if you know you're not hitting a goal, my team members will come up to me and be like, I know I didn't hit my reading goal, and we have that conversation. So that way, when it's year-end review, we know those conversations and they're not going to be a shock. And the other thing is, I know a lot of times folks will tell me things like, yep, I can't get a raise. There's never any money for a raise. But maybe there's other things you can ask for instead of a raise. For example, going to a conference or going to ShareLearn in California where ShareLearn connects. Those types of things are sometimes more beneficial. Or maybe paying for, I need a new printer or I need a new office chair. Sometimes our bosses can't give us that cash money right away, but we can sneak other things in if we want to keep you too.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm going to request if anybody wants to share their year-end reports. I'm happy to share the one I do, but I did mine this year, and I'm at a new school, and one of the benefits came out. I spent a lot of time on campus last year, and I didn't want to complain about it because I was needed. But when I showed the number of nights in the budget for me being on campus, it was a great time for my boss and I to reflect on, wow, that's a lot of nights away from home, probably more than most people travel in the fall. So I encourage that year-end report. Know your budget from 3 different standpoints, your recruitment budget, your budget for your home office, and then your budget for travel to campus. I think those are 3 distinct parts. And if you want to really present a nice cap to your year-end report, is know your cost per student in your region. A lot of times consulting groups will do that. They'll come in and look at that recruitment budget divided by the number of students you recruit and get that sense of how much it does cost to recruit and why your importance is needed out there in the field. We're going to hit this last section really quick. This is kind of putting the bow on things. And again, this data is on the website, but Jim's going to take us through our 4th section on career.
Yeah, so one thing we asked is, are you considering moving? Most people are not. 54% of respondents said they're not considering a career move. The 46% that did, some are looking outside higher ed, some are looking within. One lonely person is in a school counseling grad program. Maybe they'll be joined by more. The next slide will show another question we asked is, how do you receive a promotion at your institution? And the 45%, that big orange section, said there's no clear path to a promotion at my institution. No idea what's going on. Then there's lots of people that are unsure. Some people say there's a roadmap, and then I have to follow certain things to get up the ladder, and some are just based on tenure. So there's a big variety, but on the next slide, it took the question, are you considering a career move? And on the left is what we looked at before. 54% said they're not considering a career move. But when you look at just the responses to that question, where people said there's no clear path to a promotion, it flips, and 57% of those individuals are considering making a move either within or outside of higher ed. So I think it's a telling stat that was the same and consistent with previous year surveys, that if there's not a path for advancement available or understandable to employees, they're going to look for another option somewhere beyond, because you can only do the same thing for so long in a lot of ways. And if you don't have somewhere that you can see yourself going next in your institution, you're going to look for another opportunity.
Awesome, Jim. Michael and Ruth, tips on the longevity of your career. You've enjoyed it? Stick with it? Ruth.
I was gonna say, I'll go ahead and start. So what's interesting is that I think that 10 years ago when I left UCLA for the regional world, it truly was a time where I'm like, am I gonna stay in admissions or what do I do? And so I really enjoy change. I like to be challenged. I don't like to get comfortable. And so that's why I went into the regional world and I'm really loving it. I have considered leaving. The biggest job that I've considered taking on has been event planning, because I do so much of that for my job. But the thing is that, to be honest with you, I'm a really good event planner, but I hate it. The reason that I hate it is that you have to rely on a lot of people to do that job. And so I'm a very detailed person, so that's why I'm really good at it. But it's kept me from applying for those type of jobs because I was like, do I really want to leave admissions for that world? And so I've considered going to the other side of the desk and things like that, but admissions just keeps me. I've never even wanted to go to graduate recruitment. People have tried to get me to go to that side. I don't have interest in that. So I think what's important is people finding aspects of their job that they really love. If there's certain passion areas, that'll help you your longevity, whether you're interested in data and reports and assessment or marketing. Like, I think the hard part is each campus university is structured very differently. And so in some campuses, you have certain jobs and not in others. So that is where you have to also be prepared to move and leave. I know for younger staff, sometimes they start working at their alma maters and they can't imagine going to work for that rival across the way. But just the other day, I'm a Bruin. I went to UCLA and I was telling somebody that they needed to apply to USC. I'm like, I think that's a good fit for you for what they're interested in and where they are in their career. So I think for me, it's also important helping people understand what they're interested in, because I made mistakes in my career and I want to keep people from doing those same mistakes like I did.
And I would say really quick, for me, I've always been the happiest when I'm challenging myself. When it's just easy, when I'm on the road just doing my 5 visits, I'm bored. I hate my job. But when all of a sudden I'm raising my hand and asking to do another project or working on committee or working on a special event, that's really when I really enjoy my job. I also love training and helping our team. So I think that's another ring that has helped me move up the ladder, that my team has recognized that and they're like, Michael, can you help interview or help train these people? And then the other thing I would say is rely on people in your network. You know, Ed, Ray, there's a bunch of y'all in here that I'll call and I'll say, hey, I have a question about this. How did you do this? Or how should I handle approaching this? Using those people in our network to get what you want. When it comes to hiring or even getting promoted, you know, there's sometimes when I'm like, I wouldn't work at your personality will not fit at that school, or you'll fit in perfectly there. And keep that in mind too, because we've all worked everywhere, it seems, or you know somebody, so that's helpful too.
Yeah, Jim, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this?
I don't know. I mean, there have been different opportunities that came up. The international recruitment kind of field is so small and insular, it's a really hard thing to break into and works very differently. But everything else, I'd find something that I'm working more with spreadsheets than with people. That's where my job is trended towards, and I enjoy that, but that's just my natural personality. But I'd have to say I'm still with UCD 10 years later because our office has a great culture and I work with great people. And my boss is on the call, so I'll say she's excellent, perfect, 100% no notes. But I think we really do have a great team and a great culture here. And, you know, regardless of kind of career advancement, maybe, or job titles or things, I think I'd be more likely to stay in an office where I felt respected and valued and my contributions had meaning, regardless of what the rest of it was. I mean, salary is still an important part because we don't do this for fun. But I think I'm more likely, and I was talking with someone else about this during the call, that, you know, the culture and the kind of experience you have in an office can be a hugely important part, even beyond salary up to a certain point.
Yep. I think my mystery, I'll always wonder why I haven't gotten to the other side of the desk, the high school counseling side, living with a counselor. Maybe I've seen too much of it up close, but I've really enjoyed it and loved the opportunity to represent different schools. I've always said this is kind of like that halfway point between campus life and high school side. So I've enjoyed it. Ray, what are you going to be doing in your golden years?
Yeah, I was just going to put in a plug for those that maybe aren't able to make moves that result in the higher title or the management of people. Like, don't forget the moves that give you a better quality of life. And I've been a regional at 4 different schools, and every time I made the move, I got a smaller territory and less nights away from home. Now, it often meant more applications, but it was more concentrated, and raising a child who's, now a freshman in high school and soon to use my tuition benefits. I'd also like to put in the plug that those things are real and they're coming to fruition soon. So keep the long range of your life in mind, like what's important to you personally, in addition to professionally, because it's a two-way street, and really finding that balance.
And we've done it. We've squandered another hour of a regional person's life, huh? I do want to thank our Michael Decker and Ruth Rodriguez for joining us in this panel, and Jim and Rayanne for participating in that. Ray, final thoughts to kind of lead us through to September.
I know, yeah, it'll be here before we know it. I'm in denial. We're all in denial that March is next week, right? So yes, we'll keep you posted via the NARAC listserv. We'll send the email blasts and let you know when things are coming open. No pressure, like we said, to register on that, but once you know, let us know, because we'll be interested in the size group that we'll get at Columbus and want to plan accordingly. We will send out some great notes from this. Things, again, like you can email Ed if you need copies of this presentation, Jim if you have a question about the data, all that good stuff. But yeah, anything else, Ed, Jim?
No, great to see everybody, and yeah, keep on keeping on. We're making a difference. Stay the course. I went to a conference at USC in January, and Art Coleman, the lawyer, said, "Stay the course. Our work is important." I think Angel Perez has stated that as well in his video. So we've got work to do. We've got some new challenges, but let's keep plugging and showing the world that people can work from home.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, we were doing it before all these other people were doing it. So
Exactly.
love it. Perfect.
We'll sign out.
Awesome.